All right, diving in today, folks, we're taking a look at Bob Camblin.
Yeah, Bob Camblin. He's quite a character. Widely recognized, sure, but also a bit of an enigma.
That's putting it mildly. And that's precisely why this deep dive is so exciting. You, our awesome listeners, have sent in a treasure trove of material. We've got his own words, these thought-provoking mysteries he's known for, bits and pieces about his life, some intriguing reflections related to that book, Zen and the Art of Enlightenment, and even a YouTube analysis of his painting Liberty, which we'll definitely get to later.
It's quite a collection. It really speaks to his range.
Right. It's not just about the art he created, but the way he thought about art, about life, and about how we make sense of this crazy world. So our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to crack the code of Bob Camblin's vision, find those hidden gems of insight, those aha moments, and figure out the why behind his unique perspective.
And I think the variety of this material is key. We're not just looking at him through one lens, not just the artist, but the thinker, the philosopher, the guy who walked his own path.
Yep. Totally. So for those needing a quick intro, Bob Camblin was born in Oklahoma in 1928. Cut his teeth artistically at the Kansas City Art Institute, landed a Fulbright, went to Italy, the whole 9 yards. Then, after years teaching at different universities, he does something radical.
1976, right? He just decides, I'm done with the academic life. I'm all in on art. I'm going nomadic.
Exactly. Packs his bags and dedicates himself completely to his art, traveling all over, soaking up inspiration from every corner of the globe.
That decision to go nomadic, it says something, doesn't it? About his need to experience things firsthand, to maybe even break free from the traditional art world, or maybe even society itself.
I think you're spot on, and that's where the material you guys sent in becomes so valuable. You've got these super concise, almost poetic quotes, right alongside more traditional biographical info about exhibitions, collaborations, the whole timeline.
They even layer in stuff connected to Zen and the Art of Enlightenment, and that YouTube breakdown of liberty, and it's like we're getting all these different angles, these different ways of looking at Camblin.
Absolutely, and for you, the learner, this is where it gets good. Instead of just a single story, you get multiple perspectives. We'll connect the dots, create those aha moments, and hopefully make this complex artist who really defied any simple label a little bit more understandable.
That's the goal. So where do we even begin with this guy?
Let's dive into his philosophy, which, fair warning, is full of these awesome paradoxes. He's all about common sense, the perfectly average view. But he sees that as the key to unlocking the miracles in science, the magic in the world, embracing the intensely bright gray in between, he called it.
He was onto something there, the extraordinary hidden in the ordinary. It's a core idea in a lot of Eastern philosophies, finding deep meaning in everyday things.
Right. And that gray area, it suggests he wasn't about simplistic black and white thinking. There's nuance everywhere.
Nuance is key with Camblin, that's for sure.
Now buckle up, because he gets even more intriguing. He flat out says the sixth sense is to be, without a doubt, senza dubio. It's a powerful statement delivered with so much certainty.
It's almost like a challenge, isn't it? Like he's saying, trust your gut, even when you have doubts. It's about going beyond logic, tapping into intuition.
And it gets deeper. He talks about finding that one thing in nature that truly completes you, and then surrendering to it.
It's about finding that connection, that wholeness outside of yourself. It's almost like dissolving into something bigger, something vast.
It's a beautiful and kind of terrifying thought, and then we see this pattern of contradictions, right? Resist and submit, balancing, being both for and against, and there's this almost meditative phrase, when you think, don't act. When you act, don't think.
Classic Camblin. He loved playing with opposites. But it wasn't about choosing one side or the other, It was about the tension between them, the energy that comes from that back and forth, finding that rhythm between action and contemplation.
He was all about finding that balance. And speaking of shifts, he talks about how art evolved from art for art's sake into something much more personal. Art for life's sake, he called it. Or even art for my sake, or art for survival's sake.
That's a huge shift.
Yeah.
It's not just about aesthetics anymore, right? It's about how art becomes essential, vital to life itself.
Yeah.
Art with a purpose, with real meaning.
Totally. And then he drops this gem, this image that just sticks with you. Step off the train of thought. To find the power that is no power. To do the work that is not work. To laugh the true laugh, bending is not bowing.
Wow. Okay, unpack that one. It's like he's urging us to break free from routine, expectations.
Yeah. To break free from that rigid, linear way of thinking. That power that is no power. Maybe it's the power of nature, of letting go, of being in flow.
And that work that is not work, it's about Finding joy in creation, right?
Yeah.
When effort becomes effortless. It's a beautiful idea.
It is, and he's all about these distinctions, these subtle differences, like believing versus knowing. He says mystics have been somewhere that logic can't reach. It's like he's advocating for that balance between intuition and reason.
It's about recognizing that there are multiple ways of knowing, right?
Yeah.
Some things can't be explained, only experienced.
And then there's this cheeky line, history is believable when it is creative. It makes you think about how we construct narratives, how we understand the past. It's not always about cold, hard facts. Sometimes it's about the stories we tell, the interpretations we make.
It's about that human element in history, the way we make sense of it through creativity and imagination.
Exactly. And he also suggests that we lose our magic in understanding everything instead of knowing. It's like the more we dissect and analyze, the less wonder we experience.
Like the saying, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. He's saying we might know a lot, but have we really experienced it?
Exactly. And throughout it all, whether it's drawing, teaching, searching, revealing, he frames everything within paradox. It's like it's the lens through which he saw the world, this
Yeah.
constant interplay of opposites.
And that comes through so strongly in his art, doesn't it? In the way he combines different styles, different techniques, creating those multi-layered images that are open to so many interpretations.
Totally. He had this amazing way of blending the concrete and the abstract, the symbolic and the real, and he wasn't afraid to be provocative either. He called for a return to a more naive approach to art, unburdened by history, critics, and a very affluent but weird culture, he said.
And then he drops this bomb. A critic is a legless man who teaches running. It's brutal, but there's truth in it, right?
Oh, absolutely. There can be this disconnect between those who analyze and those who actually create.
And for Camblin, it was all about doing. He was all about that nonverbal communication, both in his drawings and the concepts behind them.
It makes sense, right? When you're working visually, so much is communicated without words. It's about evoking feeling, sparking those intuitive connections.
And then there's this idea of the mystic switch, a personal truth that changes over time. What do you make of that?
It's like those moments of deep realization when your entire perspective shifts your understanding of yourself or the world.
Right. It's the understanding that our truths aren't fixed, they evolve as we do. What we believe now might change tomorrow, and that's okay.
That openness to change, to constantly questioning is so essential. And then he gives us these almost like commands, learn to fail, relax, feel, then really think.
Such good advice.
Mm-hmm.
And not just for artists, right? It's about embracing the learning process, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, to feel deeply, and to engage your mind fully.
It's about being present, being alive in every sense. And then there's this wonderfully Zen-like statement, I didn't learn anything new, but I know a lot more now. It's like sometimes it's not about acquiring new information, but integrating what we already know on a deeper level.
It's about making those connections, seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens when we stop searching externally and turn inward.
And his use of mirrors as a metaphor is so powerful. Everyone is a mirror, and that is magic. It's such a simple statement, but it speaks volumes about our interconnectedness. We reflect each other, we learn from each other, we grow together.
It's that sense of unity, that we're not isolated individuals, but part of something much larger. And that's where the magic lies, in that connection.
Absolutely. And he makes this really important distinction between magic used for personal power, which he sees as negative, and magic used to see and understand better, which is positive.
It's about intention, right?
All right.
Are you using your power to manipulate and control, or to connect and understand?
Exactly. And he has this really interesting take on perception in art. He talks about the deceptive nature of real seeing and calls art partial retention. It's quite humbling, actually.
It is. It acknowledges that we never truly see the whole picture, and art can only capture a fragment of that reality.
But that fragment, that partial retention, can be so powerful, so evocative. It can spark something in us, make us question, make us feel.
And that's what Camblin was all about. He called the artist the only truly free agent, unbound by commitment unless desired. It's about that autonomy, that freedom to create without external pressures.
And yet, he wasn't against collaboration. He loved bouncing ideas off others, working together to create something new and exciting. He even formed B&E Productions and later the Holding Firm Collective to organize these really unconventional shows.
It shows that he was a social preacher too, right?
Yeah.
He enjoyed that creative exchange, even if he ultimately valued his own autonomy.
Totally. And he was ahead of his time in a lot of ways. He talked about a shift towards participatory art, where the audience is actively involved, not just passive observers.
And then there's this line that really makes you think. Religion, Belief, art, belief, self-perception, belief.
Mm.
He's putting them all on the same level, suggesting they all stem from our belief systems.
It's that idea that how we see the world, whether through religion, art, or even our own self-image, is ultimately a matter of faith, interpretation, and subjective experience. And he recognized the duality of things, how even positive qualities can have a shadow side. He talks about faith, discipline, communication, even being itself as having the potential to be both aids and hindrances.
It's a nuanced perspective, recognizing that even things we consider good can become limitations if we cling to them too tightly.
And he had this idea, which echoes some symbolist thinking, that explaining something can actually diminish it, even kill it. It's about preserving that sense of mystery, that intuitive understanding that can't always be put into words.
That's where the power of art lies, in those spaces where words fail us.
And he constantly emphasized the limitations of communicated knowledge compared to the richness of experienced feeling. He believed there are no mistakes, that those so-called mistakes can actually guide us, lead us to trust our instincts more.
It's a more forgiving way to look at the creative process, at life itself. It's about embracing the unexpected, learning from every experience.
And he warned against the demon of being right, that need to be correct all the time, which can really stifle creativity and hinder progress. He was all about embracing flow, letting go of that need to control everything.
It's about surrendering to the process, trusting that it will lead you where you need to go.
And he had this great line about how historians love artistic madness when it isn't alive and well and attending meetings. There's a bit of social commentary there, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. It's like we romanticize the unconventional once it's safely in the past, but we're less tolerant of it in the present.
It's easier to admire rebellion from a distance, right?
And he challenged us to train ourselves to open, not close, the circuits of perception. It's about cultivating that curiosity, that willingness to see things from different perspectives, to constantly learn and grow.
And finally, he found humor in understood truth. It's like once you really grasp something, you can appreciate the irony, the absurdity of it all.
That's the kind of wisdom that comes with deep understanding, that ability to find lightness, even in the face of profound truths.
Now, getting into the recurring themes and symbolism in Camblin's work, metamorphosis is huge. We see it in his thoughts on aging, in the contrast he draws between bright days and our earthly ties, and especially in his later art. His later periods really focused on that cycle of life, birth, death, regeneration. He even drew inspiration from dog years and used imagery like scarecrows, lobster shells, empty larva shells.
It's that cyclical nature of metamorphosis that really resonated with him. It's a core concept in a lot of Eastern philosophies, that constant process of change and transformation.
The journey, the path, is another big one. Quotes like, step off the train of thought. That image of the gate being open but the quarry remaining unseen, and the idea of the path back representing long silence and infinite space.
And remember, that analysis of his work, connected to Zen and the art of enlightenment, talked about the search and the path, suggesting that the journey itself is the destination.
Exactly. It's not about reaching some fixed endpoint, but about the process of seeking, of experiencing, of constantly evolving.
And then, of course, balance, which, as we saw in his love for paradoxes, was a central theme for Camblin. In the balance, patience and yet, freedom again, and yet in silence. That quote really sums it up.
It does. It's about finding that equilibrium between opposing forces, between intuition and logic, between resisting and submitting. It's a dance, not a destination.
And that brings us to that constant tension between seeing and looking, knowing and understanding.
He said, one must learn not to look, but to see. It's about going beyond superficial observation, engaging on a deeper level, using both your eyes and your intuition.
And knowing is different from understanding, right? Understanding can be intellectual, but knowing is deeper, more experiential. It's about that gut feeling, that sense of connection that goes beyond words.
Absolutely. And then there's this really cool idea of art as a question, as a puzzle. One review said, what is art but a series of questions disguised as images? And a lot of descriptions of his drawings talk about codes, narratives, even little traps for the viewer, all meant to spark self-discovery.
He wanted to engage his audience, make them think, make them question,
Yeah.
make them find their own meaning in the work. It's a very active way of experiencing art.
Okay, now let's finally talk about liberty. From the descriptions we have, it sounds pretty stark. A desolate landscape, a broken down Statue of Liberty, either kneeling or rising from the rubble, holding this red object that could be a light bulb or a heart, and then this serene sky above it all. What a contrast, right?
It's powerful. That ruined figure against the peaceful sky. It makes you question what happened. what it means for the ideals the statue represents.
Totally. There's this sense of ruin and resilience, decay and persistence, the erosion of those big ideals we hold dear. And that red object, the light bulb or heart, it's been interpreted in so many ways as sacrifice, struggle, or maybe even a flicker of hope in this bleak setting.
It's open to interpretation, which is probably intentional. It lets the viewer bring their own meaning to it.
And the presence of water in this seemingly dead world is interesting too. It suggests life is still there, persisting somehow. Water is often a symbol of resilience, the life force that keeps flowing even in the face of destruction.
It hints at the possibility of renewal, of rebirth.
The analysis we have looks at liberty from a few different angles. From a Zen perspective, it's about the impermanence of ideas, the fact that change is constant, and the fluidity of true liberty. It even connects the painting to the I Ching, specifically hexagram 23 Po, which is all about decay and necessary destruction before renewal.
The I Ching is all about change, the cycles of life. It's a fitting connection for a painting that deals with ruin and the potential for rebirth.
The Taoist interpretation is interesting too. It sees true liberty as an internal state of being, not just a political or social construct. It's about adaptability, harmony with nature, finding that core essence within yourself that can't be broken, even if the external form is destroyed.
It shifts the focus from outward symbols to an inward experience of freedom.
And ultimately, the analysis suggests liberty challenges our fixed notions of freedom. It's not dead, but it's changing, evolving, maybe even becoming something new entirely.
It's a call to reevaluate our ideas, to be open to new ways of thinking about freedom, about what it means to be truly liberated.
So much to think about. Now, let's switch gears a bit and look at Camblin's influences. His early inspirations were all over the map. We've got familiar places like Grand Avenue in Ponca City, those grand structures like the Marland Estate and the Pioneer Woman statue. Then there's the whimsical world of The Wizard of Oz, the philosophical writings of Emerson, the wisdom of the I Ching, even haiku. It's a wild mix, right?
It is. It shows how open his mind was to different sources, highbrow, lowbrow, everything in between. He took it all in.
That eclecticism definitely stayed with him throughout his career. And his time in Italy on that Fulbright was huge. He got to see the masterpieces at the Uffizi Gallery, but he was also drawn to those macabre Capuchin catacombs. Apparently, they really stuck with him, even influencing his later abstract figures, which he called mummies.
It's fascinating how both those experiences, the beauty of Renaissance art and the starkness of death, shaped his artistic journey. It's like he was drawn to both extremes, to the fullness of life and the inevitability of its end.
And that tension definitely plays out in his work. He started with social protest themes, but then his art evolved to blend social realism with non-objectivity, with abstraction. It's like he was moving beyond making direct political statements and exploring something deeper, more universal.
It's that shift from the purely representational to the conceptual, the emotional.
And he was an innovator, too. In the 80s, he was a pioneer of those Muscia volantes with Nancy Giordano. They were these intricate arrangements of dots and dashes that created optical illusions.
They sound incredibly intricate. It really shows his willingness to experiment, to play with perception, and to make the viewer question what they're seeing.
He wasn't afraid to push boundaries, and his style became this fascinating blend of abstraction and symbolic motifs. He used translucent washes, partial line drawings, layering, all sorts of techniques. His work has been compared to everything from the symbolists and surrealists to the watercolor landscapes of Turner.
He was a master of blending different styles and techniques, creating this really rich, multi-layered visual language.
And he even incorporated text into his drawings, but not just as labels or information. It was more like clues or even disguises, blurring the lines between words and images.
It added this whole other dimension to his work. It's like he was playing with the relationship between language and visual experience.
And ambiguity, hidden meanings were central to his work. He really had to look closely, think deeply to unlock those layers. He even said he wanted to remake Goya in 20th century terms. Talk about ambition.
He wasn't afraid to set high goals, to engage with big themes, and to find ways to make them relevant to his time.
According to a lot of sources, his work evolved over time, shifting from those intricate drawings to more organic forms, landscapes, even focusing on the life cycle, the process of metamorphosis.
It's like he was coming full circle, back to nature, to those fundamental processes of life and death, growth and decay.
And he was a true master of his craft. That blend of drawing and watercolor techniques, his ability to create works that were both illusionistic and multi-layered, something that's always highlighted when people talk about his art.
He had incredible technical skill, But he also had that vision, that ability to see beyond the surface and create something truly unique.
All right, so now let's talk about Camblin the man, the persona. He's been called enigmatic, iconoclastic, even a mystical trickster figure.
He definitely cultivated a certain mystique, but he was also known for being a really social guy, a great storyteller, someone who loved collaborating.
Yeah, there are all these stories about him getting into lively discussions and debates, just laughing and having a good time with other artists. He was a free spirit, one of Houston's old
He's
masters.
a complex character, that's for sure.
He believed in putting the work first, often signing his pieces simply as anonymous. And he had this interesting relationship with the art market, sometimes even refusing payment for his work.
It shows he wasn't driven by money or fame. He was committed to his art, to his vision, on his own terms.
He was nomadic, but he funded his travels through selling his art, which is kind of ironic, right? And he formed B&E Productions and that holding firm collective to organize these unconventional shows. He wasn't afraid to shake things up.
He was engaged, but in his own way. And later in life, he kind of withdrew from the Houston art scene, moved to Oregon and Louisiana, became more reclusive.
Maybe he needed that space, that solitude to really focus on his work away from all the distractions.
His studio was described as a wizard's den, full of all sorts of curious objects. And he often called himself Mr. Peanut, even signing some work under that name.
It adds to that mystique, doesn't it? That playful, almost surreal side to him.
It's like he was always playing with our expectations, challenging us to see things from a different perspective, just like his art.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's clear that Bob Camblin was a truly unique artist, a deep thinker, and a bit of a rebel. He was fascinated by paradox, by transformation, by the way we perceive the world. His work, across all those different styles and mediums, constantly challenged viewers to look deeper, to question their assumptions, and to find their own meaning.
And for you, the learner, we hope this journey into Camblin's world has been a rewarding one. His emphasis on personal discovery, on questioning, on finding those connections between seemingly unrelated things, it really speaks to that thirst for knowledge, for those aha moments that make learning so exciting.
Absolutely. So, as a final thought, to leave you with something to ponder, think about this. What train of thought might you need to step off today to get a fresh perspective? What seemingly ordinary thing might be hiding a deeper mystery, just waiting for you to uncover it?
That's a great question. Go explore, folks, and see what you find.
Until next time, keep diving deep.